you're just painting and following lines and just watching the flow of the watercolors. Like there's a lot of power also just in that conversion. Just being present. It's the whole mindfulness piece, because I think women in particular, mothers in particular, just so busy doing all the things, 5 million things racing through their minds at any one time. So to stop, it's almost like literally a breath of fresh air, or like a healthy meal, something to actually nourish you.
Welcome to Soul-Led Creative Women, a podcast for creatively curious women seeking rich, soul-led ways to look after themselves better. I'm Sam Horton, and in this episode I'm talking with artist and business coach, the lovely Ros Gervay, about her many exciting projects, the artist's journey, and how women can empower themselves through art. Enjoy.
Hello, Ros. So excited to have you here today. For those of you who haven't met Ros yet, she is a business coach for new and rising artists, helping her clients to develop the confidence to show up as an artist, sell their work, and master their marketing so that they can build a fulfilling art business and get paid to do what they love, even if they're self-taught. She is also a practicing modern botanical artist based in Sydney, creating stunning, vibrant, abstract art inspired by nature. Ros uses beautiful splashes of colour, and her work often features the most glorious, almost fluoro pink. Her work is regularly featured in a number of Australian galleries. She's been a finalist in the Unearthed Art Prize, and somehow she finds the time to take on amazing wall mural projects, co-hosts a podcast, and is currently getting artworks ready for the Sydney Affordable Art Fair. So welcome, Ros.
Thanks, Dan. That's a really good intro.
You're welcome.
I sound impressive. How did that happen? Yeah, that sounds like a lot. I sound like I do a lot of things, Sam.
You do a lot of things. You're amazing.
Well, you know what I discovered maybe 6 months ago was this whole concept of human design.
Yes.
And I'm a manifesting generator. And I think that's the thing right there. Like, and here you are now, you're starting your podcast and your YouTube channel as well. So, get all the things happening. Somebody called me the other day, a juggler extraordinaire. And I was like, it's probably true. Like, I do the juggle. It lights me up though. It's less boring, I think, without the variety. I need varied things. Some people, especially projectors, for example, in terms of human design, they will like things to be a little bit more contained, a little bit more controlled, and that's all good and well. But for me, variety is 100% the spice of life for me. I get too bored if I've just got the one thing. I'm bored. I love a challenge as well. So I don't know if you relate to that.
Yeah. Well, you must have kind of built that up over time though. So where did your creative journey start? How did you end up here?
Oh, I don't know. It's been a whirlwind, let me tell you. How did it start? My goodness. Well, I guess for me, the background was I studied design at uni 5 million years ago, just the other day, I should say, just the other day. Studied design at uni. And then I worked in interior design after that. And yes, I had a little bit of a mid-20s crisis, and I ended up having a career change into primary teaching. And then I had a primary teaching crisis, and now I'm full-time in art. So that's the short summary of the journey. And in terms of the transitions, I made this big transition from teaching into art. And that was that classic seesaw sort of situation. So starting with the art, building up the income from the art, and then slowly reducing the work days, and then leaping full-time into art, which is how I am.
Right. And then obviously the art wasn't enough, because now you're mentoring other people as well, other women, to create their own art businesses. So, that's a big journey in itself as well, right?
Yeah, it turns out that I just love the business side of art life. I just absolutely adore it.
Awesome. So what does your art practice personally mean to you? And how do you think this has supported your well-being and your wellness journey?
Yeah, so I think the biggest piece and the biggest learning and the biggest journey has been around the confidence. Because I don't know if you remember the first time we shared an artwork on social media with friends and family even, or, with the broader world. Pretty bleeping scary, like pretty frightening. And this feeling like, what are they going to say? Are they going to laugh at me? Are they going to think I'm silly? Are they going to And for me, that has been the biggest piece
Mm.
of all of this, including having a podcast, because I'm not an extrovert. So just learning that my voice is valid in terms of my art and also my opinions on things that is valid. And I can help people through what I do, broadly speaking. And that's been a really big piece of the journey for me.
It is huge. I mean, I can remember just spending ages, before you hit the send button in the very beginning, to expose yourself in that way, because your art is such a deep part, comes from such a deep part of you. So yeah, very intimidating, but very important.
Do you want me to share something else that's related? And I haven't verbalized this before, but I am taking singing lessons, and I've actually always been interested in singing. And my beautiful singing coach, she looks at me, she sees my art online all the time. And she looked at me the other day and she goes, Ros, can I have your permission to speak openly? I'm like, of course, we're friends, right? So fine. And she said, your confidence with your art is just absolutely inspirational. What we need to do, we need to bring that confidence over into your singing. And I'm looking at her going, yep, because I've done it with the art. I've done that. I'm confident I can put myself out there with the art. It's almost like this is my art. It came from my soul. It came from my spirit. It is what it is. You can like it. You can not like it. You can move on, whatever, it's fine. But then to reapply that to a new area, that's a little bit of a challenge for me, but it's great because it's just refreshed my awareness around that. So I can support my clients even better because I'm still right there with them, just in a slightly different context.
Yeah, I can relate to that so much. I feel like, I was in business leadership, as an employee in corporate and the business world for many, many years. But then flipping over into the entrepreneurial space, you want to take that confidence somehow and, project it into your new world. But it is challenging. It's a huge process.
Yeah, and it's a little bit, it's almost disorientating when you have a new context. But we can get there. And, it's the same for our newer artists that are in our worlds, they can get there. They just need sometimes, and often they just need that extra hand holding, that extra support until they can get to that place where they can find that bravery and that courage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this validity of our voice, so I think, for me, and I'm sure many of your listeners, like I was a very shy child. I hid behind my mum's legs. She used to call me a limpet, like I was just that type of kid. And I didn't want to speak up. I didn't want to be heard. I didn't want to be noticed.
You wanted to stay small.
I wanted to stay small for whatever reason. I mean, you can go and psychoanalyze me, but that's, for whatever reason. And so I think, art just miraculously, accidentally has had the impact of, taking me out of my shell, and it's just been it's a really rewarding, really rewarding journey.
Amazing. I do really think that your art practice, becomes much more than just making the art. It's actually, a form of, maybe very down to earth and practical, but it's a form of a spiritual practice, the places that it can take you to, and then overspills into the rest of your life, in a really beautiful way, and impacts it in ways that are completely unrelated to art.
I'm getting goosebumps, listening to you, because when I first started out, I was reading The Artist's Way.
Yeah.
And which I'm sure you've read. Almost every artist I talk to has read that book. And it was definitely a big piece of why I could keep going in the early days. Because in the early days, you don't feel like you necessarily have the skill set. And so you're looking at your art going, there. But one of the pieces of The Artist's Way is this concept that you are simply this conduit, right? This conduit for higher powers or whatever it is. And those powers are creating through you. And that was incredibly liberating for me and helped me to keep on going. It's almost like this is the mark that just happened on my character.
Yeah,
that's it.
Exactly. It's an amazing concept, isn't it? And there are so many layers to it. Sometimes it's very meditative, and sometimes it's very frustrating, and sometimes it's really joyous. There are so many layers to it. So, lots to explore.
Definitely. So, so I've been working on collection for the Sydney Affordable Arts Fair at the moment. And it's actually been a really big battle. So you can coach me through this if you like. You should be inside my head, should have been inside my head over the last month of creating these works. It's been an epic roller coaster, let me tell you.
Wow. Is it overcommitment, do you think, in terms of how many artworks you're producing, or is it just getting the ideas flowing, or?
I think for me, it is around space. So space to be creative, because for this particular period of time, I had so many different things going on. So I was running a corporate workshop, I was painting a mural, I was running a masterclass on something art business related, as well as creating these artworks for the upcoming fair, because obviously you can't leave that to the last minute. You've got to have enough time to frame, you've got to have enough time to varnish, you've got to have enough time to photograph your pieces and all of that. And so being under pressure can really impact your creativity and your mindset, I feel. What's your experience with that, Sam?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, the way I approach my creative practice now is in a very holistic way. So it takes as long as it takes. And this is why, committing to X pieces for an exhibition of any kind feels like a very daunting thing. I mean, it's not something that I particularly enjoy because it takes away from the actual process of making the art, which is a delicious experience. And sometimes it's quick and easy, and sometimes it's actually long, slow, and winding, and takes you down different paths that you didn't really expect. So, yeah, to me, it's really important to preserve that process, and to find ways to give yourself enough space, as you call it, to actually just allow the creativity to come through you.
Yeah, definitely. But I can see that.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And to be honest with you, I see the art as a bit of a byproduct. So the actual process itself is the most important part, I think, in terms of what it gives you and how it supports you, and what you get out of it as an individual, as the artist. The process itself is probably 80% of it, and then the art sits over there as 20%. That's how I personally look at it these days. But it's a journey. I mean, being an artist, like, you've got to create art. So you've got to find a way to push it out somehow.
Yeah, definitely. Well, something that I've reflected on recently, this is my second fair experience, is that there is actually value in having two ways of making your art. So I describe myself typically as an intuitive painter. I don't have a plan. I know the colors I use because, fluorescent magenta, like that's the only color out there worth talking about. It's a beautiful color. It's my favorite. It's the golden brand, by the way.
Is it? Yeah. Well, I think it's part of what makes your art yours as well, is that glorious pink, right?
Yeah, but also, anyway, I could jam on that as well. This idea of making the art that you love, that's the only art that's worth making. But no, I was just talking about the two different ways of making art. So one is that intuitive way, and then working out how to tame that so that you can work to a deadline and a bit of a plan. You need at least a bit of a plan, I feel, when you're creating for a fair or an exhibition or an event.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's quite hard when you're a big expressive. Like, I love to work big and I don't like to have a plan.
Yeah.
But you need a couple of little hacks just to get you organized enough, essentially, to meet a deadline.
I mean, I do think it's literally, it is being an artist in business, as in creating art to sell versus being an artist to create art. They're two different things, I think. And I think, there's a lot of artists out there that produce stunning, beautiful work because they need to find a market, because they need money. They're literally painting the same thing over and over and over again, just in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
And, that takes away, I think, a little bit from the artist's journey, because
that is an area of intrigue for me as well, and I've always wanted to just ask those artists, so do you still enjoy making your art? But I haven't got the confidence, confidence to ask them. I feel like that's prying, really, but I would be very, very curious to know
Probably do. I think they probably don't enjoy it as much as they could. If they were really able to just use complete freedom, they certainly probably still enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the spectrum of enjoyment.
You know who I'm thinking of? Coldplay and their song Yellow.
Oh, yeah.
Every time they have a concert, I'm sure they
But
have to play Yellow or whatever it is, their most popular song at the time. You know what I mean?
yeah, absolutely. It's the
Like
same
these
thing.
artists having to churn out the same type of art because that's what's popular. That's what they became known for.
Yeah.
Very interesting, isn't it?
And, the demand for it too, because you might make a few paintings that do really well, and then all of a sudden you've got commissions for another 20 and no choice.
You're locked in because it's a business, right? This is where I love the whole multiple income stream model though, because it takes a little bit of pressure off the original art and gives you a bit of room basically to have a bit of that freedom back and to make sure you're making art that you still connect with. Other artists do also tend to have two types of art. I'm sure you've seen that. The art that they know sells and then their own more exploratory art. It will still connect. Yeah. But that's quite common to have the two.
Yeah, the two streams between the two. So tell us a bit about your experience with these murals then. So that's completely off tangent, isn't it? Because, that's making money from art in a completely different way.
I love it. It is like so much fun. I love working big. So it really leans in. Like that's just aligns with me. I have the interior design background as well. So I have an appreciation for space and how that flows. I love that I don't have to buy a canvas. I can just work right there in person on a wall. Gets me out of my home studio as well. It just ticks 5 million boxes essentially.
Wow.
So yeah, I absolutely.
Was it intimidating to sort of see this blank wall there that you've got going? And do you sketch out what you're going to do, or do you just do it intuitively once you guess it?
Oh, business client work. There's definitely a sketch before. Yeah, for sure. And it's all approved. And I've gone to Bunnings and got my paint chips and I've got approval of the colors that I'm going to be using as well. Yeah. Because it's a space. I mean, worst case, it is actually the same as acrylic paint, just paint over it. Right. So there is actually that line goes through my head all the time when I'm doing my murals. It's like, oh, I make a mistake, I'll just paint over it. It's totally fine. Not that any majors have happened, but just it's the mindset piece, isn't it? That way, we were chatting on earlier.
Yeah, well, they're certainly very big and glorious. So, I mean, what an amazing thing to do. And how did you get into the murals, though? Like, how did you start?
Great question. I think my first public art was painting a piano in my local community. Which, with my love of music, that was, an extra little perk for me. So that piano was circulating my local suburb and people could just go up and play it. It was amazing. And then the next mural job came through my child's speech pathologist and they found out that I was an artist. And so they engaged me to create their mural. And then it went on from there.
Wow.
That was the waiting area. Yeah.
Very good. Very impressive.
So much fun.
So switching across to your the work that you do supporting other artists. So tell us a bit about some of the kind of empowerment transformations that you've witnessed while you've been mentoring other people on their own journey to, become artists that sell their work.
Yeah, definitely. One of my most proud clients that I'm most proud of is actually an artist named Karen Buelner. And so she's in my VIP program, my Art for the Heart VIP program. And she has basically making big steps towards the big dream. And she's actually reducing her days in her day job now. And she's running workshops. She's got recurring income through her passion for art as well. So she's really an inspirational story for me. I love working with her and seeing her really step into her power. She's also a manifesting generator. So I just look at her and I'm like, the potential oozing. So she's a big one for me. Another client of mine, Brody Wallace, we had a massive moment with her. We were both crying on the coaching call because she had this realization that she was making this art that she felt she should be creating.
Okay.
And I know that you know what I'm talking about here. And that's why we were just crying because time is too short, like life is too short to waste doing anything that you think you should be doing. And so now she's finally stepping into her power and her own voice and creating her own art that aligns with her. And that's got to be it, right? You've got to build an art business and build art sales based on your art. Like, oh, full circle here. I mentioned that, but yeah, definitely. So that's a big grounding story for me as well. That's why I do what I do. It's yes, I want to help artists to make an income out of their art, but I want them to find themselves.
That's true. I mean, the lines can get quite blurred, I think, sometimes, because of course you like the art that you're making, but is it really the deepest you can go with it, I think, and is it really reflecting what's in your heart? Yeah, you have to show yourself.
Definitely.
It comes from deep within. So,
and
very
seeing
powerful.
that your voice is valid again, your visual voice is valid. That's a really big one for a lot of creatives as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't have to look outside of themselves, this whole shiny object or comparisonitis, looking at what everyone else does, you have the answer.
Yeah, it's like the pressure for, things to be realistic or look a certain way or be, a certain type of abstract, like it's that pressure as well, isn't it? Looking at what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, definitely.
Really, it just needs to be your version.
It can take a bit of time to get to that point, I think, and a lot of experimentation sometimes, a lot of trying out that style, looking at a certain artist and taking inspiration from them. And then, but, sometimes it can take a bit of time to come back to who you actually are. And I think perhaps, people need to grant themselves a little bit of permission to go on that journey. Don't just instantly have a visual voice that's authentically you.
Yeah. And I mean, to experiment with art, you don't need to be an artist or have any intention of being an artist either. I feel like, the exploration that you just highlighted there is, there's beauty in that, just in itself, and you can get so much out of experimenting and playing with different materials and different technique, different ways of doing things. And eventually you'll find the things that you love. You know what I mean? Like it's not about choosing something and then just doing it until you've become a master at it. It's actually about finding the things that really speak to you.
Yeah, definitely. You know what that was bringing up for me is a corporate workshop, which I ran recently. We did some neurographic art. So I'm not an art therapist. I'm very, very open about that. And I made that clear on the day, but it is a therapeutic exercise. I just call it art for well-being, really. And we were doing this activity and I was looking at these beautiful women around the room and, thinking of their history, because as women in particular, or girls growing up, we are pushed into that, follow the rule, stay within the lines, produce perfection, and make sure it's neat. And all of these women would have had, most of them would have had a background like that. So it was really rewarding to see them having a go at making art again and trying to let go and shake that off, because we were not about the outcome. We were about the process.
Yeah.
And my little secret goal as well was for them not to finish their artwork, even done commas if you're listening just to the podcast here, not to finish their artwork in that session, so that they would have to take it home and try to bring that art practice into that home space.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, really nice. Yeah, I think, there's a lot of people haven't really picked up a paintbrush or set of pencils or pens since they were a kid, and that's the reality of it, right? Unless you've got children and you're getting involved in that, but it's not quite the same as following your own kind of free will, so to speak, and choosing to just play,
and
like
being new and being new at something again and being a learner. That's very hard. That's a big leap for a lot of people. Obviously not impossible, but that's something that needs to be addressed and dealt with.
Yes.
As you try something new.
Yeah, well, I think, opening yourself up to it, but then, it's really reflecting on how that made you feel. Like how did it make you feel to play with those paints? What did it feel like physically? What was going through your mind? What came up for you? Do you want to do it again? You know what I mean? Like just simple questioning like that can really kind of open up a whole new way of looking at things. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Definitely. I was thinking about preparing for this neurographic exercise, and it was that's not my style of art, right? It's an art activity, and I was simply facilitating. But it was really amazing just to prepare for it because you're just in the zone and you're just doing the things in front of you. You know, you're just painting and following lines and just watching the flow of the watercolors. Like there's a lot of power also just in that immersion. Just being present. It's the whole mindfulness piece because I think women in particular, mothers in particular, just so busy doing all the things, 5 million things racing through their minds at any one time. So to stop, it's almost like literally a breath of fresh air or like a healthy meal, something to actually nourish you.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that it's one of those things where the more you do it, the more you get from it. So, you know, it's following that curiosity and showing up for it if you feel like it actually, you know, did feel good. But the more you do it, it has a compounding effect. So, yeah, it's definitely exploration and play has to feature. It doesn't matter if you're starting again, you know, haven't picked it up since you were a kid, or if you're like a seasoned professional artist. If you don't have play and exploration in your creative practice, you're missing out because it's really where the joy is.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's why that's why artists start really with the enjoyment of the materials. I think so. I would say that's probably a fair enough statement to make.
Yeah. How much did you play with before you found, you use acrylics, don't you?
Yeah, acrylic, like sometimes a bit of mixed media. So I use a bit of spray paint at the moment, water soluble pastels, so sort of break some rules to do that. Though, what did I say? I think it started out when I returned to art as an adult. I think I started out with watercolors.
Okay.
In a contemporary sort of a way, not the traditional watercolors.
Yeah, and I think once you find your thing, it's very hard to say no to it. You know what I mean? Like I plan to use this and the other in piece of art and often forget because I just get too wrapped up in acrylics.
Whatever it was, I can't imagine me ever using oil. I think I fantasize about it, but at the same time, the amount of time that it tasted dry. Yeah, the patience, just not my thing. I'm patient with humans, everyone, don't be worried. But with artwork, saying, no, I just need to slap that on. That needs to just dry, so I can slap some more paint on top of that. Speed, everybody, speed.
No, I mean, impatience is one of my big things, I think. So sometimes I'm patient. I do very intricate work sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, just, slap it on. Like, can't wait for it to dry.
Yeah, that's me too.
So how can people get to know you better, Ros, and get a feel for the work you do?
The best place to come and find me is on Facebook, actually. I have a free Facebook community called Permission to Paint Free Community I think we've got about 2,000 gorgeous artists in there, and I pride myself and us on having such a beautiful community. So everyone is beautiful, very kind, very generous, and it's a very, very safe space. So that is the best place to come and check out what I'm up to and come and join as well, my support well with me.
Excellent. And obviously the link to that will be in the show notes, as well as Ros's website and some other links as well. Thank you so much for coming on today, Ros. I really appreciate you. Love the work that you're doing. Yeah, and great chatting to you.
Thank you so much.
If you'd like to receive 3 actionable creative wellness tips personalised to your circumstances that you can implement easily straight away, head on over and take my free quiz at samhorton.co/quiz.